.com's Washington correspondent John Stanton. Michael and I were also in Geneva covering this Iran deal. Comparing Kerry to Clinton, do Kerry's recent successes at all diminish what Clinton succeeded at?
Well, I think people can judge that on their own. I think there's no question that Kerry is kind of more of an acrobat. He's more out on a limb. He's taking chances. This is the end of the line for him, as Jill said at the end of her segment. Hillary, I think, played it a little more cautiously, knowing she might run for president again, and this is probably the last thing Kerry does in public life. I would say also the differences between them are somewhat on the margin, because the Secretary of State in this administration really has been kind of an envoy job above all. They're not really setting policy, foreign policy. The White House is extremely controlling of foreign policy, and on most of the issues that were just discussed in that segment, I think the big decisions were made. The National Security Council, President Obama himself, very active in setting foreign policy, a core group of aides, as you know, who make the big decisions. So the differences are somewhat on the margins of how they kind of carry out the diplomacy they're tasked with.
John, this story's gotten a life of its own, that because Hillary may be running for president, that has affected her risk-taking. Do you think that's fair criticism?
I think to a certain degree, perhaps, but, you know, she's not the type that's going to say, I'm going to make bad policy because of my political future. I think that she, to a certain degree, like a lot of people that run for president and a lot of politicians, believes that she knows what's right, and then she has a lot of confidence in herself. You know, and I think, depending on what happens with Secretary Kerry's positions that he's taken on Iran, on the Middle East peace process, if those things don't work out, she's going to look much better in the end. And those are very big questions that are still out there, whereas some of the things that she's worked on with repairing the country's sort of image in the international sphere after the Bush administration, working with women, those are pretty solidified, and those aren't going to go away for her.
Your article, well-named Obama's Iran Gamble, diplomacy is risky, right? Particularly when you're dealing with some of your toughest adversaries in that part of the world. How much at stake for President Obama here and for Kerry?
Well, quite a lot. I think that, you know, you can trace what happened in Geneva. It's fascinating to me, all the way back to a debate in 2007 in Charleston, South Carolina, where Obama said we should be talking to the leaders of enemy nations. He was called naive by Hillary Clinton, irresponsible, I believe, by John McCain. All kinds of other people piled on, and people thought this idea that we can change our tone, change our approach, and just by extending an olive branch, have diplomatic breakthroughs was ridiculous. Right now, it's looking like there might be something to it. But if the deal falls apart, if Iran essentially betrays us, if they cheat, he is going to look like he got duped. A very quick last point to expand on what you said. The big question for Kerry, Middle East peace talks, the White House, that's the one thing they have said to him, you can go and get that done if you want, we're going to hang back. If he can get a breakthrough on Middle East peace, that's legacy making, and I do think that trumps anything Hillary did.
Absolutely.
That would be, well, listen, the battles aren't just over there, they're here, right here in Washington, Capitol Hill. You have Republican lawmakers and Democratic lawmakers in his own party pushing for more sanctions. The administration says that could get in the way of making the deal successful. How big of a battle do Kerry and Obama still face here?
I think it depends on what happens with the Iranians, particularly in the short term. If they look like they're sort of sticking to the deal, I think Democrats will back off enough to allow the administration some wiggle room. But if it looks like they're playing games at all, or if the pressure really starts to build on them, I mean, you already have Senator Schumer and a number of members of the House on the Democratic side saying they don't care about this. They want to see more sanctions already. And that is going to be a big, big problem for a White House that has sort of put a lot of these members into the position of feeling that they've been betrayed on Obamacare and on other issues. And this is just sort of one more thing that is sort of grinding them wrong a little bit.
Question. Secretary Kerry is putting out a big push on Capitol Hill now to head off those sanctions. I think he put out a video today that congressmen are going to be looking at. Thanks very much, John Stanton. Michael.